Welcome to Growth and Inspire, where we examine topics that make me feel inspired and grow. I am your host, Bonnie Yan, and we will be posting frequently on topics to help you run your business better. It can be issues involving new regulations, taxes, planning for business growth, or how to run your business more efficiently. Whether you're CEO, CFO, or any C-suite members, this podcast is for you. We hope to bring you insights and discussion points, drill down on complexity to make it simple. Join us on this journey. We'll have lots of interesting guests such as business evaluators, insurance experts, finance, and business coaches. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review if you enjoy what you hear. Now, let us get started with today's episode. Today, our topic is SOP, Standard Operating Procedures. And with us today is Chuck Knabusch, founder of 1310 Business Solutions. Hello, Chuck. So happy. Yes. Yeah, so happy to have you on our podcast. So before we start, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your company?
Yeah, 1310 Business Solutions was founded in 2019, about a year after I had retired. My wife said, find a hobby, find a job. And it just so happened that my former employer reached out and said, hey, would you come back for a project? I said, sure. We did that for about 6 months. COVID hit. They said, hey, we have to get rid of you. I said, I understand.
Oh, no.
But 3 months later, they came calling again saying, we've got another project for you. And unfortunately, all of our resources are so busy with the backlogs that were coming out of COVID. It was a home furnishings company, Lazy Boy Incorporated. So they said, well, would you come back and help us start up a couple more manufacturing facilities? And I had never done that before. So I said, absolutely. You know, what a kind of neat thing to do.
So your past background is in manufacturing?
Yes.
It's a lot of labor, a lot of layers. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So that's interesting. So actually that's a nice intro to what we're going to be talking about. So let's just start with the describing what is SOP and why is it important for business organizations?
Well, all sorts of businesses have all kinds of operations. I know traditionally operations is the manufacturing, or it might be the logistics, the shipping of stuff. But you have operations in all functions of business.
Procedures.
Payroll is an operation, whether that's done weekly or every 2 weeks or once a month, because it's a repetitive process.
Yeah.
So, I mean, really any operation should have standards. What do we mean by standards? Well, we want to have a certain outcome, whatever that desired outcome is, and we want to be able to measure, hey, are we doing it well or are we doing it poorly? And then once we find out how to do it well, we want to go ahead and do it that same way each and every time. So we want to create a standard. So realistically, it's just documenting what our procedures are, what our steps are to get that desired outcome. And there's a lot of different ways we can go ahead and do that.
Mm-hmm. It's just like, I think there's a book called Atomic Habits. Like, if you want to improve, you have to have good habits. You start with having some good habits. So why don't you start with writing it down, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what are the key steps in creating a comprehensive and effective SOP?
Again, it's going to depend. I mean, there are ways to go ahead and do them in a very narrative format. And that's probably what a lot of people may be familiar with. You have a policy, and then behind the policy, you have step 1, do this, step 2, do that, step 3, do that. I like to go ahead and work in a more visual environment coming from manufacturing. We did a lot of visual manufacturing standards. So we had what we called a visual standard work instruction. And it was a way to go ahead and put all the steps and connect them with pictures of what's going on there.
Much easier. Yeah, definitely.
Because again, a lot of times a picture's worth 1,000 words. telling somebody, well, go to the upper right corner to click on this, or
Exactly. Where is
whatever.
that?
Show them the picture, put an arrow, exactly what they're
So
supposed to
much
click on.
faster. You're
Makes
absolutely
it
right.
so much easier.
Yeah, so much, right? Particularly something that's complex, so it takes like even longer to describe it. And when they have a question, then you have to what the, it's so hard to. It's right here. You missed it. It's right here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But then, so I mean, visual standard work instructions are what we use on the manufacturing floor. We did use them in the office in some places, but there's other things that you can go ahead and use. I mean, you can use a flow chart. Like I said before, you could go ahead and just put a set of numbered steps. You could go ahead and use another thing that we call a SIPOC,
What is
which goes
side?
ahead,
What side?
SIPOC, which goes ahead and tells you what your suppliers are, what your inputs are, what your process is, what your outputs are, and
Interesting.
who your customers are.
Interesting.
I like to go kind of a couple steps beyond that, where you put on your controls. So, hey, what controls this and what measures? What are you looking to get out of it?
What you're going to
And so
get.
that way you can also measure, are you starting to go off base or not? And you need to go ahead and come back and relook at that process. So, I mean, there's hundreds of different templates out there. For those that are interested, I do have a few on my website
Mhm.
at 13ten.com. I mean, go out there, feel free to download any one of the templates
Yep.
and use them.
Yeah, it actually a major time saver, particularly let's say you have to hire a lot of employees, and every single time you need to onboard them, it takes up a lot of time. So if you have standard procedures, hey, look, at least I start off with this when you ask questions, it's like more aligned to your job, so I don't have to just like explain every single time when you have a new person onboarding. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, and I think you're absolutely right, Bonnie, because a training document is an SOP. So, a lot of times it's, hey, Joe's leaving and Samantha's going to come in and replace Joe. So, hey, Joe, train Samantha. Well, if you don't have a training document, if you don't have an SOP, Joe's going to say, well, I've been doing this for 10 years. Let me show you. But Joe forgets a few things because Joe's been taking a couple of shortcuts.
That's
Maybe the shortcuts hurt. Maybe the shortcuts don't hurt your process.
that's
But
right.
now Samantha's in there. Oh man, I can't remember exactly what Joe said. And yeah, Samantha took notes, but those notes are now the new SOP, right?
You
Because
you
that's
improve
exactly what she's going to go ahead and use.
you improve
So
it.
realistically, it's so much better to document them. So now Joe has a document to share with Samantha. That's also a great time for Joe to say, "Ooh, we've changed a couple things. Let's update the SOP before I hand it off to the next person."
You know what you remind me of? Like recipes, cooking recipes.
Absolutely.
I forgot after a while, so I gonna search for it. And then I'm missing some ingredients. So should I add something new? Does it follow along the rules that you have in your book? So yeah.
Well, I mean, do we all remember grandma used to make whatever dish? I mean, whether it was cookies or something, and she didn't write down the recipe. And now a generation, two generations, three generations later,
With
we can't cook it
Yes,
anymore because
so
it's
sad.
not written down.
Yes, you're so right. Yeah, I think this is great. It's not just applied to business, personal lives, multiple aspects. It just provides some order to your life and your business. So it's great. Yeah. So once an SOP is developed, how do you ensure that it is effectively communicated to the entire team?
Well, again, it's a matter of sending it out, possibly posting it, might be putting it in a book right next to where the operation's done so
Mhm.
they can reference it. But I think it's important to also go ahead and get various team members to go ahead and pull it out and run it.
Yes.
Because again, if the SOP missed a step, you could go ahead and come up with something you weren't expecting. So it's really good to get a person who doesn't do the job every day to walk through it and say, hey, am I doing it right, with somebody who does do it looking over the shoulder and say, uh-oh, I did miss a step there. I didn't document something that we needed. So I think it's really good to kind of close that loop and do that, even periodically. Um, we had my wife was worked for me at one point in time before we were married, and she was in charge of scheduling multiple plants. Well, but there was only one scheduler at each one of these plants, and she had them write their documentation on how to go ahead and do scheduling because it was very different. Because we were in one place it was plywood, another place it was leather.
Mhm.
She had those people change positions and see if they could work in the other position for a day.
Yep.
When it didn't work, she said, no, no, no. Obviously, we have not gotten a great SOP. We need to go back, redo it until we can go ahead and change positions. But what was really in case somebody wanted to go on vacation, somebody wanted to leave, somebody unfortunately got hit by a bus. Not that we'd want that to happen, but let's say they're all of a sudden out for 6 weeks. You can't go 6 weeks without scheduling a
That
plan.
is so important. Like a lot of business owners don't realize, oh, like, I think, I hate to point out some particular industry. I think accountants, CPAs, they're so very busy. They find it very difficult to assign like work to the lower tier of the workers. And because of that, when they take a vacation, things like really, get very difficult. So yeah, I think you're so right. I also want to ask you here. This is just a trick question. No, I don't want to say trick question. Like sometimes it's very difficult to write down all the SOPs. So for like certain job, can you give some examples? Like maybe I don't know, a contractor to go in to a home to investigate whether it is compliant with whatever. So there are a lot of things for you to check. So, are there any tricks that you can share to document the SOP effectively? Because sometimes the range is so wide. So where do you guys
Right.
start?
Well, I mean, the neat thing is we carry this device called a phone with us now, and we can take pictures of what we do. I mean, so,
That's right.
it used to be you'd have to break out a camera, you'd have to break out a notepad and paper. But I mean, on the phone, you can go ahead and take audio memos, you
Yeah.
can go ahead and take pictures, you can go ahead and step through. We put in a pool a number of years ago, and my wife says, it's too complex for me. And I said, okay, I understand. But also because I was being trained, I hadn't worked on a pool in a lot of years. But it's like, so I took notes, I took pictures as I was being trained.
Yes.
And then as soon as I got a chance, I sat down at the computer and I wrote it all down and typed it all up. So my wife and I have it as a reference.
You're right. Maybe
We go
even
on
videos
vacation
too. I think
sometimes
you're so right.
and our kids come over, they say, well, I don't know how to put the chlorine in. Well, great. I can go ahead and send you the document and you know exactly how to do it. It's got pictures, it's got arrows, it's got a lot of neat stuff in there. So, I mean, the neat thing is because we all carry a cell phone, we really no longer have an excuse not to document something.
You're so right. We document other things that more interest us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So, how often should SOP be reviewed and updated, and what triggers these reviews?
Well, I mean, some of the big triggers are when we go ahead and make a change. I mean, we know we want to make a change in the output
Mhm.
of something. No longer is the output giving us what we want. Well, we can verify, are we following SOP? But it may be, hey, we want to raise the bar a little bit. We want to do something like that. So that's a great time to review an SOP. It may be anytime we change personnel doing the job, it's a great time to review an SOP.
That's true. Yeah. Mhm.
Probably any time that we've gone more than a year or two without reviewing an SOP. Granted, it'd be great to go ahead and do it every
Just do it.
quarter,
Yeah.
but I understand that the administrative burden on that sometimes is just way too much.
Mhm.
So, if you say, hey, every year or two, you could actually go ahead and put it in the calendar, say, hey, we want to do this department, or we want to do that department, or we want to do that
It's
function.
always good. Yeah. Probably help you save money too, because you'll be able to eliminate some useless tasks that doesn't serve anybody. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
Anytime you add automation, you may want to go ahead and review an SOP. You change a system, you want
Uh,
to do an SOP because again, some things may be, as you said, become automated, or there are ways to go ahead and do it more efficiently. And the neat thing is about SOP, ask the person doing it. Chances are they have found, we as humans find ways to be more efficient
efficient after
on
you put it
taking a
so
shortcut. Sometimes it adds value, sometimes not, but
mm,
it's a great time to go ahead and verify, does
document.
it add value and give us the same output we were looking for?
So, since you're talking about automation, computer, and all that. How do you think that's gonna impact the SOP with AI and everything? I mean, like you just spit out, how do you do this? Boom, 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 boom. It spits everything
Well,
out.
I think it's kind of neat because there are a lot of AI tools now where you could go ahead and say, just read off a list of things and it will go ahead and type it for you. So if nothing else, you can go ahead and be saving time there. It
Mhm.
may be you can go ahead and ask the AI, depending on how good it is, and give me a set of procedures to do something. It may not be exact, but it's a starting point.
Mhm.
And now you don't have to start from a blank sheet of paper. One thing we humans, I mean, we all say, hey, we love to start with a blank sheet of paper. Give us a blank sheet of paper and we'll sit there for an hour staring at it. But give us something that we can critique and we can start to mold and everything else. Give us a starting point, and you'd be surprised what we humans can go ahead and go from there on.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. You know, it's just like they have so much data. So when you ask specific questions, they pull in all the sources and give you the highlights. And then you decide, this is
Right.
relevant, this is not relevant, this is very, very relevant. And then you prioritize them. But at least like somebody did the hard work for you. I don't have to go through all those extra steps. So you can just, spend your time more efficiently, get it done properly. Yeah. So I agree. Yeah. You know what interesting that triggers my mind? I'm thinking, like SOP, when we talk about SOP, like people ask you to like submit like a proposal, right? So basically they asking you for the SOP, kind of.
Right.
So okay, so tell me if you want to do this task for me, give me a proposal. So what are the steps? I need this, I need this equipment, this is how much gonna it's kind of like, how do I get the job done? Standard procedures, like and your procedures, does it match with what I'm looking into and the outcome and the output?
Well, and Bunny, I think you're absolutely correct because I have done some work for a number of companies where they had a job description or they didn't. But the job description just kind of tells you the basic responsibilities, but it doesn't tell you when they're supposed to be done, doesn't tell you how they're supposed to be done. So I encourage companies to go even a step further with their people, is to use the thing called the standard leadership work. Because that way it goes and says, well, every Monday you need to have this, and this done, or every Tuesday, or once a week, or once a month, or once a quarter. And by standard leader work, it's a great way to go ahead and say it takes it from that next level from, hey, these are a list of responsibilities and a list of experiences we're looking for when we go out
Mhm.
to the marketplace to hire somebody, to this is really what you're going to go ahead and be doing.
Yeah, this is great. Yeah, a lot of times when we strategize, it's like very high level. Then what? And then we need the SOP. So how do you implement? You have to have the standard procedures, right? How step by step, how I'm going to get it done. And so if I can't step in, I can hire somebody easily to get it done, or like a group of people. And if they have issues, this is what you should do, and this is how we review it. If there are problems, issues, then the saves. I mean, basically, you compiled everything into chapters, 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 chapters. So it's so much easier. I mean, you're not totally lost. Here's a book, 1,000 pages. Where do I start, right?
It allows you to delegate also. I
Yeah,
mean, in some ways, you don't want to always delegate and tell everybody, here's the exact recipe. But on the other hand, you don't want to just say, hey, go make me some cookies. Because they won't know exactly what kind of cookies, they won't know how much time they've got, how
mm,
many cookies that they need to go ahead and come up with. So sometimes even in delegating, you want to give them a better framework. And by
mm.
doing that, you go ahead with an SOP or something else. You could say, hey, this way I know that you're going to go ahead and meet my expectations
I think this
if
is
you
great.
follow the SOP.
I think this is great. I think this is really great. I mean, yeah, you have to have something like that. Otherwise, it's hard to be successful. And even if you're very, very smart, there's only one of you. So how are you going to replicate you? So you need that SOP. And then you need to review it, update it because things do change. And then there's AI. Okay. So use it smartly and efficiently. So I think
But
this is
you have to be careful. I mean, an SOP is not about micromanaging.
great. Mm,
I
mm.
mean, so you kind of have to figure out what that balance is. Because again, if you don't allow your employees a little bit of creativity, if you
That's true.
don't allow them to own whatever job, whatever process they're doing, and
That's
say, hey, I can see three ways to make improvements, that's exactly what you want. but you still need to give them the foundation upon which they can make those
That's
improvements.
so good because time changes really, really fast. So you can't just control the SOP and make everybody follow it word by word. No, it's not going to work. So break down immediately. So I like that. That's a very great, remark. So I hope people, when they do the SOP, think about the high level and the intricacies and then the flexibility and how to adapt to changes. So very good. Wonderful. I think I learned a lot from this, from talking to you. And I think that's it for today's episode. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I really enjoyed talking about SOPs. Who thought it would be so interesting to talk about?
People think it's very boring, but then now when you delve into it, when you see the implications and the impact on the industry and the people running it and how much efficiency can bring you, then you should spend some time in making it efficient too. Yes. So
You're
thank you very
absolutely
much.
right.
Yeah. So if you need any clarification, assistance, let us know, and you can definitely reach out to Chuck. And thank you for joining us. And if you enjoy the show, please leave us a review. Your feedback will help us improve. And don't forget to follow us on social media. If you have any questions, suggestions, reach out to us. We love hearing from our listeners. Join us in our next podcast will be the New York State Secure Choice Savings Program. And we will be examining more on how to plan for retirement. So until next time, stay inspired. Thank you very much.